Audra. Audra. So here's what we're going to do next. I'm mostly tired of talking, so we're going to have you guys talk. But we are going to think back to a little bit of what we did yesterday. And I did talk briefly about developing cognitive mental skills and how important that is. But what we're going to do, we're going to go into old dog, new tricks. Well, originally you were supposed to have a presenter from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Well, she could not make it. So then Audra and I were assigned this session, and Audra just said, you do whatever you want. And I decided that I love discussion groups. I like to have a good discussion. So that is really what we're going to do. But as we start off, I want you to think about what you've learned in this summit so far. And I know some of you were not here yesterday, and I've alluded several times that humans have a natural tendency to resist change due to a fear of the unknown, comfort in routines, and the effort required to adapt. Now, I'm really going to focus in though on the comfort in routines. How many of you have heard the saying, but that's the way we've always done it? We hear that too often. You've heard me allude to evolution, that we need an evolution. If this thing acts up, I'm getting rid of it. Seriously, what's going on? That we need to evolve in driver education and training. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. The world around us is not stagnant. And I know we've probably said that all along, but certainly today, everything is evolving in ways none of us could have imagined 10 years ago, 15 years ago. For safer roads and safer people, which is a big part of that safe systems approach that Jonathan Asani talked about yesterday. Pam Fisher has talked about as well. It is vital that driver education and training practices are absolutely enhanced to adapt to technological advances and changes in demographics. Our students are changing. Wow, they're going to continue to change. We need to look at personal and professional growth. And as we look at improving ourselves, and that's what these conferences are all about. Your professional growth, your personal growth, becoming a better teacher, a better instructor. And how many of us think we're the most perfect teacher ever? Yeah, I'm just kidding. There's always room for improvement. We need to get outside of our comfort zone. Try to do something new. That's going to be one of your assignments. And the biggest thing after yesterday I want you to do is commentary, teaching, and student commentary. Implement practices new to you. Take the initiative to do your own research. Yeah, you go to these conferences and you hear Jonathan talk about a lot of statistics. You hear Audra, myself, and others. Well, hey, learn yourself, especially what's going on in Utah. Look at the Utah data. It tells you a lot. And incorporating practices that are more effective for our modern students. And we are in a transition time now as we move from Gen Z to Gen Alpha, because they are going to be very different. Jonathan talked a lot about this yesterday, enhancing student engagement, and certainly then as we look at student assessment is very important as well. We talked today about blended learning, tech tools, use the cell phone, figure out a way to engage. I do understand you don't want them to have that phone in front of them at all times, but let them know We're going to use the phone at times, but at other times you need to set it aside. We talked about ADAS and how important it is and overcoming resistance of technology usage in driver education. Embrace that technology. Okay. Enhancing student engagement through modern feedback and assessment practices. I got ahead of myself on one slide. Yesterday we talked a lot about questioning techniques, positive reinforcement, constructive criticism, though I like the phrase coaching by correction, because that's what we're doing, and then commentary teaching and student commentary. Everybody got an opportunity in 2 of those videos to practice that commentary. And what we are going to do now is we are going to spend about 10 minutes in 4 discussion groups. I was debating whether we could actually get into a couple circles. I'm not sure we can. What do you think, Audra?
If you can do it fast.
Can you guys get think we could get 4 or 5 discussion groups, move the chairs around? Otherwise, I'm just pick up the whole row. And in a coordinated effort. All right, we'll just go to an open forum. So you guys ready with the mics? Okay, get ready to get engaged. What we're going to do, who's timing for 10 minutes? And we'll need to watch this time. Here's our first activity that we are going to do. Comfortability and resistance. Raise your hand if you have a question. They will be around with the microphones. We can take any of these questions. Why do we get caught up in only doing what we know? Why are we resistant to change? And how does this affect delivery of driver education as the world changes? Wasn't there a soap opera as the world turns? As the world turns? It did spin out of control at some juncture, didn't it? Go, fire!
So how does this affect delivery of driving education as the world changes? We know that effective classrooms have to have change, and if you don't, then usually you're not a teacher for very long because you can't handle the kids.
Yes.
So it's classroom management as a driver instructor. This would help with the challenges of and even with the cell phone. If you set certain things like certain standards and everyone buys into it, and they help set the rules and things like that, treat the students more like an adult, because right now they are really close, and if we don't treat them as adults, then they're just going to act up. You know what I'm saying?
I did, spot on. I'm agreeing 100%. I don't have many of these, but you get a piece of candy.
I just wanted to admit, we have I'm kidding. I was just in the AI session previously, and it really is changing rapidly. Max, wondering if I should cover up the camera when the parallel parking occurs on the test, or just those different dynamics, cars that can parallel park themselves. It really is pretty miraculous how things are changing so fast with AI and just the automation of how advanced really the automobile is becoming and how it affects drivers in training.
Absolutely. But rule number 1 with technology, at any time it can do what? Break down. So we become over-reliant on our cars parallel parking themselves. Well, what happens if that technology is not working at that particular juncture? The backup camera, we cannot ignore it. I do a lot of work in driver licensing. We had these discussions several years ago. Is a backup camera something that could prevent a crash? It absolutely is. Now, parallel parking, automatic parallel parking, to me is a convenience feature. But something that could prevent a crash, we need to teach them how to use it in conjunction with everything else that they're supposed to be doing. So use the backup camera, but don't forget about your mirrors, your head checks, everything else. And one of the great things too is we now have, with all this technology, what kind of warnings?
I really haven't.
Okay. Blind spot sensors, rear detection, detects cars, can detect pedestrians, but is it accurate all the time? not necessarily. So, yeah, this technology, yeah, we absolutely have to embrace it, but we also have to keep in mind it doesn't always work. Someday, maybe, but in AI, that's one that is growing exponentially now. Yes?
Question, Roger. Oh, no, we got a gentleman right here, and we'll come to you.
There's an order to this.
Well, I just think it's interesting how much driver's ed has changed, like, in our area, because like I got taught from one of the godfathers of driver's ed, he did driver's ed for like 50 years.
Yeah.
Like he retired from teaching and then went over and 2 weeks later he was working at Job Corps teaching there. And, you know, he taught us a certain way to do things and stuff, but in the 20 years of doing driver's ed, like our area has gone from more of a rural area where there wasn't a lot of traffic, and now it's like just super busy and
Yeah.
it's spooky out there driving. So, you know, you gotta change the way you're doing things and the way you're teaching the kids when you're dealing with that stuff.
Our environment is changing. It's becoming more complex and more dynamic. Absolutely. But yeah, it's not the same as it was, to me, 20 years ago. So I've been doing this for over 35 years, and I've seen a lot of changes in that 35 years. And when we do teach about ADAS, one of the scenarios we go back and revisit, how many of you remember when ABS first came out? Were you teaching driver education when ABS first came out? And we all went, bah humbug. You should know how to achieve threshold braking or impending skid. We don't need a car that does that for us, but now look where ABS is today. It's absolutely commonplace. We will be there with all this other stuff eventually.
I just purchased a new car this past month ago, and so much stuff is in it that I didn't ever have before, and we need to be able to convey some of these items to people to realize that this stuff is only to assist you in driving, not to do the driving for you.
Absolutely. Drive as if you don't have it. Let it back you up when you need it.
Amen.
Well, no better
Oh,
time
no,
than
no, no, so
present.
give them 2 mics, 2 mics.
Give them two. In stereo.
No, it's just about the driver, the backup camera. Can we let them use those on the test while they're parallel
They
parking?
can use the backup camera, but they still have to do all the maneuvers correctly. Use the mirror, head
That's
check.
all the behaviors.
All the behaviors have to be incorporated in, but they can use it as one of the tools.
Awesome, thank you.
I would rather see that they know how to incorporate it than to deny them it.
Honestly.
Yeah. That way it's incorporated with all the other behaviors.
Well, I think one of the other things you need to think about is what we do in Iowa is we do an intake at the beginning. We ask them, what are you driving at home? Because the driver's ed car is a 4-door sedan. But I haven't had to incorporate a Tahoe and a 3/4 ton pickup into my driving program because most of my kids are farm kids and they're driving giant 1 ton or 3/4 ton pickups. If you're teaching them to drive in a 4-cylinder sedan and all they drive at home is a 3/4 ton or an SUV, driver's education is very different for them.
Yep.
And it isn't safe for them because when they go to stop, they're used to pushing that pedal harder because it's pickup. They'll stab the brake on a little sedan. Same thing when you're taking off. So understanding what they're going to drive in their daily lives is helpful for you on how you instruct.
Is there 3 minutes left on this topic? I'm going to get us back on our objectives.
Right here.
Yeah, I
The
got you on
the
that.
question, let's focus
You got it
on,
right here.
how does this affect driver education as the world changes? Go.
I'll loop you back around.
Thank you.
How does it change? How the resistance, failure, scared to fail?
You get my last piece of cake.
That's a mint worthy.
That's to the point. We're setting ourselves up for failure. If we do not, if we're not receptive to making changes in what we're doing in driver education and training. Where's the next one? Go ahead. I have no more candy, so. Okay.
Maybe I've got a bit of a counter.
See, it wasn't just me on the microphone, was it?
Maybe I've got a little bit of a counterpoint, but I just want to point out that in response to why are we resistant to change, I think big picture wise, it's hard for our generation to not see a lot of the changes that are happening to our young people as negative. Shorter attention spans, shorter ability to delay gratification. There's all kinds of things that, like when we say, okay, time is going on, we need to adapt. Well, we look at this, I think a lot of people in our generation have to be honest, we look at our world and we say, it's changing in some kind of crappy way.
Oh, I agree with you.
And so I feel that when I saw that question, I was I kind of like teaching the old school methods.
Right.
Because I think there's some value to that, and you're even saying it. Yeah, okay, we have these new technologies, let's incorporate them, but also they break,
Right.
right? You're saying it too.
No, they do. They are not reliant. We should not be reliant on them because they're not perfect. There are limitations. Read your owner's manual. It will specify under a bunch of these features.
Use the caution.
Exactly. Right? There are limitations to what they will pick up, especially anything that relates to pedestrian or bicyclist detection. They do not pick them up. Motorcyclists, all of those, and I call that our vulnerable road user group. Okay, one more and then we'll go to our second question.
I think some of it's not only fear of failure, but fear of the unknown is what.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck in that middle generation of the befores and the afters.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it with my kids.
And we just don't know
We don't know.
what's going to happen.
And then we get stuck in the negative mentality of, well, we're seeing how all of this is negatively impacting everybody, but we're not seeing the positive of all of that technology and what we can use and how we can use it to our advantage.
And I think that's a good point because a lot of times, especially when you look at ADAS, it has some benefits and it has some challenges, right? But when you really weigh them, the benefits far outweigh the challenges. I think we need to look at how we can adapt and drive our education the same way. If we evolve, the benefits will outweigh. All right, so the new 10 minutes. We're going to take 10 minutes. Question number 2, incorporating technology to align with modern student learning. I think we've kind of already started to talk about this. And how can we overcome resistance of technology use in driver education, e.g. blended learning, tech tools, cell phones, activities, and ADAS. So I think this is where we started to go. We started to get ahead of ourselves. So let's keep going with this discussion.
I'm also going to add in there, how do you help multi-language learners? Because we have a lot of them in Utah with using tech and.
Everywhere it is. Yeah.
I think part of it is making sure that we use the parents. So if we can give assignments to kids, I know it's one thing that we do in our district, if we give parents assignments to go through their cars with their kids, and they actually have to express or explain what the tools that they have, the different technologies that they have. That way we're getting the parents involved in doing that part, because really we need to be teaching them the skills and make sure the parents are driving those points home as well. So if we're really getting them involved, then we can kind of hit these things without taking up more time.
Absolutely, because they only have you for so long, don't they? They're going to have their parents, at least till they're 18 and anymore, well until they're probably 25, when they truly become independent. Go.
Just on the topic again of how we overcome resistance of technology, because we're at a new state with teachers, like the governor just came out, like we don't want phones in the classroom, so our schools actually, next year, there will be no phones. However, we have one-to-one devices with MacBooks, so teachers are always doing that anyways. And I think it's a good blend of what you're saying, like, as the new stuff's coming out, like some of it's amazing, and you just have to embrace, like, but you still have to look at it with the lens, is this helping them learn, or is it a distraction? And I think it's just an ongoing thing I've tried some new things with the how to drive, and some of it really works and they learn out of it. Other stuff, they just quickly, like, it's just a distraction. And so I think you just have to continue to be flexible with it as you go.
Do all of you have access to some type of tablet in your classroom? Figure out how to utilize that tool. Is everybody Chromebooks?
In short district.
Right, it's per district. Whatever it is, figure out how to embrace that in your teaching. Absolutely.
I'm teaching classes for senior citizens and AERP, driver safety. And that was a 4-hour course which we provide for older Americans to get better covered with their insurance, being able to get a little bit better price on insurance, but plus majorly to find out what their vehicles can do for them, what they can't do with it. We do not do a driving experience because we don't have time to do it. But we do have, like we said, 4 hours service time with working with these different individuals and helping them to deal with what they have of their own vehicles. And it's really, really, really difficult to do this because we ourselves, the instructors, are learning on the fly.
And that is another age group that is sometimes resistant to change, isn't it?
Exactly.
No, very resistant. While teens, hopefully their minds are a little bit more open at that age, so everything we can do to tap into that brain, we want to do. Go.
One of your resources that you guys have is the highway patrol people. I don't know if you guys have, if you're doing your in-person, but they have switched to, including that Chromebook into their presentation now instead of just the PowerPoint. So I know my students have really enjoyed it. They brought in some, I think the Truck Smart brought in VR too, because they couldn't get a truck out to us at that time, but they still have the opportunity. So we do have some sources out there, so just think about that.
All kinds of tools.
We do have an annual meeting though for our instructors and individuals to get up to date with the local things going on. So that's helpful.
Hi, I'm not in driver training, but I work for AAA. And one of the features is you talk about some of the technology and this topic of how to teach an old dog. Today, the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety came out with some pretty interesting research on the Do Not Disturb feature on your phone. And so the research shows that it is incredibly effective in reducing distraction, but it has a very low, not many people use it. So older generations, like the senior drivers you teach, they don't know how to use it. So that's something that they can easily, you can easily show them or teach them. Teens know that they have it, but they don't think that they need it because they think they can use the phone and drive safely. So even things like a do not disturb feature, it isn't ADAS, but it is newer technology. And just more adoption of that could also curb some of the behavior on the road, not necessarily for the driver test, but just driver safety in general.
Absolutely. The AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety does a lot of great research. They really do.
I'm happy. I usually, the research is very lengthy, so what I do is I summarize it and I send it to a list of stakeholders who are local. I'm based in Arizona, but I oversee Utah. So I send it to all of our lobbyists and then any stakeholder. So I try to just break it down of here's the most important things so you don't have to read 100 pages of research.
Jonathan yesterday talked about some of the apps that are out there. There's a lot of great apps that can help in driver training, parent-guardian involvement. I know I saw a gentleman here from TripScore. Anybody ever heard of TripScore? It assesses, evaluates your driving, gives you rewards. There's lots of apps like that out there. I'm not promoting any one over the other, but there are some tremendous apps available. Who's next? How much time we have on? We have 3 minutes on that one? Okay, go ahead.
So with the technology, I think it's great, but I think the most important thing is that sometimes students feel like they're learning by themselves. And I think we learn better socially, and making connections with parents or friends or in a positive way to critique, their driving and having and also the parents should get better at driving. So if the kids are involved, they'll get better. Does that make sense? Because if the kids are critiquing their parents, and they use these technology tools like for insurance policies, obviously this is a kind of a cool thing for the kids to see. Yeah, look, we can be rewarded in our insurance if we just use this tool, but it's no good if it's just to check the box and get the money for the insurance. Does that make sense? Yes, they did it, but as soon as that's out, they're driving horrible again. Hopefully, this tool helps them actually change. We want to become a better driver, not simply be forced into being better.
Behavior modification, and you make a good point. Learning is a social function, so is driving. Driving is a social function. I certainly don't want to say that all of our training should use technology. We're looking at a blended approach, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. No one piece by itself is going to be the most effective. But I will tell you, I am a huge proponent of BTW. I mean, I hope I don't get into trouble, Padre. The national standards actually call for 10 hours of BTW. What's so magical about 6? Well, that's the way we've always done it. Is 6 really enough? Is 10 enough? Right? It also depends on the student. I forget, it was, I thought one of you two, we were talking about some students need more. Those students that come off of the farm, they have a tremendous amount of experience already. I taught truck driver training for 5 years, and when we had a student who grew up on a farm, that didn't take them long. So that's where, again, proficiency based. Where's the next question going? Right there?
Yeah, that's okay. Have any of you heard of CarFit, the CarFit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That is something that could really be utilized occasionally at the schools. Have a CarFit event that goes through 12 steps of teaching them how to use their mirrors, their seats, their seat belts. That's something young people could use.
Yep.
I think that younger kids don't understand is technology isn't just at a phone or at a thing, right? Like, I'm in the younger generations. I don't teach, I work for UDOT, I'm a records manager or records coordinator. But with the technology, it's as simple as the brake on the other side. It's a technology to hit onto the driver's side. It's something as simple as the steering wheel on the other side. It's still a technology. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to have some type of screen attached to it. It's still a technology.
Yep. Now there's all kinds of, and look at our vehicles, just the technology. I was just on a trip, somebody else rented a car. It was a Ford Expedition. Have you actually seen an oval shaped steering wheel? It was literally an oval-shaped steering wheel. So we're also just doing some very odd stuff with our vehicles anymore. Are blind spots getting bigger on vehicles? Yeah. Where's the next question? And then we'll need to switch.
I think it's great to stimulate like real life experiences, like teens maybe learning about things that can run out in front of them in the road, and they're like, yeah, that'll never happen to me. I actually am that teen. I was 16 years old and I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen to me. I have been driving for 12 years now, and I have had multiple deer and wild animals run out in front of me that I've almost hit. And after the first time, I learned, I need to go slow in these areas. I need to be aware of these signs. But you don't really ingrain it into your brain until it happens. So being able to have the technology nowadays that can stimulate these experiences, especially the ones on the highway, when you think, yeah, no one's going to slam on their brakes in front of me. Oh, it's really important to have a following distance. I didn't realize how fast and how bad that could have been. Like, once they actually get in an accident in like a setting that's not real life, you can be like, wow, I just experienced that, and you can say, yes, that will happen to you. You have to be able to have a safe following distance. And so that's something that's really cool with our technology nowadays.
Yep, that's the beauty of VR, virtual reality. You can put people into these scenarios, because all too often, that is our mindset in this country. Okay, 30,000 people die every year in car crashes. Well, that's not going to happen to me. Or a little over 2,000 teens die every year. That's not going to happen to my teen. It can happen to anybody. Risk is ever present, and we are all exposed to significant risk when we drive. Thanks for those observations. So we ready to go to the next one? And if we have extra time, we'll just open it up. All right, let's now go to giving feedback and assessing students effectively. How important is student feedback? What can happen to students' learning if it is not done effectively? And what are some ways to effectively assess and give feedback to students so they can develop the life-saving cognitive skills necessary for operating a vehicle safely? So we really want to focus now on this whole feedback and assessment. Is that ongoing feedback? And I truly believe that student commentary is a great way to assess and a great way for us to give feedback, particularly in BTW lessons or virtually looking at driving scenes, etc. So, feedback, student assessment feedback. Now they're starting to look tired.
So one thing we do for student feedback is We'll talk with them in the car about what they're doing, and I talk about it as opportunities for improvement, not really negative.
Right.
Not what they did wrong, but how we can improve on it the next time. And then we talk to the parents after the drive, and we tell them, hey, this is what we covered today. In between the time I see them next time, if the kid isn't driving, put them in the passenger seat and they're the co-pilot. That way, as the parent is talking, doing that commentary, then the student is listening and making those decisions together. And then when they flip the seats around and the kid's driving, he knows and the parent is hearing all that information. They're not micromanaging the drive at that point. And the parent can hear what the student is talking about, and then it kind of reinforce, oh, you missed that type of thing. And then when we come back and see them again, we review that very thing we did before. So we continue that feedback over and over again and get the parents in that same mindset. Because kids today, if you ask, the parent asks, how was your drive? They'll say, fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's not enough. You as the instructor need to be telling that parent how that kid's driving is doing. You know, if he needs more work on certain things, then cover those things. Even providing an assignment. Hey, we practiced this today, in between the next time we drive, just practice those driving skills.
Maybe a prescription.
Right, and maybe doing it for 15 minutes and quit. Because if they start to have a bad day, you want to stop that driving before it gets so bad that both parties don't want to drive together. You need them invested in being in driving, so they want to continue doing that driving environment at home as well as with you as the instructor.
If we can get parents and guardians to do this commentary, driving student commentary as well, I think it would be a huge plus. And you brought up a good point. How many of you, when you're done with a teen, ask, okay, what are you going to do differently the next time you drive? Because it might not be with you. It might be with somebody else. Get them to assess themselves.
I found that when we're doing driving, the kid that's in the back seat, just sitting there, they're filling out a piece of paper, they're taking notes.
Bingo.
And I say, hey, Johnny, what did Tommy do that you want to change, that he probably should change? And they know, oh, okay, I have another kid. It's not just a teacher that's telling me that I need to fix my driving. It's a peer.
Peer-to-peer. Get everyone in that car involved in that assessment and evaluation.
Does that form like the observation form that each kid takes when they go in?
Yeah, like we just print it. I just have a second sheet and they just fill it out that day.
Now, I see a lot of teachers come up with a variety of activities for that observing driver or observing student to do, but some of them are not really that productive. We need to be extremely productive with what they can do. And Q&A can go to people in the back. Commentary can go to people in the back. You keep it moving around. And actually that gives them, the one that's driving, a little bit of break from the commentary because one of the other students is doing it for a little while. Because you can overdo commentary. If I have a student commentary for 45 minutes, what do you think they're going to be like after 45 minutes? They're going to be exhausted. But they also get a good flavor of what it takes to drive a car. It is exhausting. I used to travel with somebody. When we were traveling, she would always say, you're not listening to me, because she talked a lot. And I said, no, Denise, it's not that I'm not listening to you. I'm concentrating on the driving task. And that drove her nuts that I wouldn't talk back to her, but I'm driving.
Right now, I'm in the process of looking at redoing some of the ways which I may question students after we finish a section in our training manual. Part of that has to do with the fact that I think we're all being situated with the getting bored with the questions which are being asked of us once we're finished. What about the ones which we build as questions for ourselves after having taken the course and taking the part of the course and get questions to come back with us like that? What they learned and what they think they learned, and maybe get some rebound off of the other students as well.
Yeah. So learning is like a web, isn't it? We can all learn from each other when you have several teams in that vehicle. You have multiple in a classroom, we all learn from each other.
Before I became I'm going to the endorsement program, and I'm not quite certified, but before I did that, my daughter I taught to drive, and the thing that she really liked the most is the positive feedback.
Yeah.
Because the problem with, like when I was been involved with anything, athletics or what, I do better when I know what I'm doing right. Yes, it's good to have the things that I'm not doing, but it's so easy to see those. But sometimes it's hard to see what they're doing right. And I think if you at least one thing, you should point out at least one thing they do well, because if you don't, they feel like all I'm doing is I'm not making any progress. I think it's really, really important to focus on at least one thing they do, even if it's staying on the road. I mean, that's a positive thing. Some kids can't do that. I mean, really, they can't. So
now, encouragement is so important, and I don't care what you teach. We're all very good at being critics, but we're not that good at giving that positive reinforcement, that encouragement. And then you look at particularly this age group, and they do need a lot of that encouragement. Find something, you're right, hey, good job keeping between the lanes. Nice shirt, something.
I was just gonna add to that, and you hit it right on. People receive differently. The feedback and assessing in general, people learn differently. You need to have a different approach with different people, not just students in general. I'm not with driver's ed either with that, but I think that is the way to effectively assess and give feedback is know your audience. Each child might have a different approach that they understand or learn differently.
And I couldn't agree more. We were talking earlier about the student commentary and different students with language barriers or learning disabilities, keep going down the list. But number one, you always have to know your audience, know who your student is, what can they do, what would be the point of overloading a student as well, because part of what we were talking about was take a student that can't do it all at once, and for a portion of the drive, just focus on where am I scanning. The next part of the drive, it's just what do you identify? The next part of the drive, focus on predict. Well, no matter what system you use, a lot of you use AAA, which is PDA, right? Well, I think it actually references a number of them. Yeah, read. So, know your student is so important. How are we doing on timing for this one? 1 minute? Okay.
I was just going to reiterate that every kid learns differently. You really do need to, just like what she had said, understand what your kid can do. Talking to them a little bit, you're going to know how much they can take in, and also look at their level of anxiety. You know, what's life at home? If life at home is a little bit unstructured and you're that person they can be trusting in, that's where that positive encouragement really comes in. And they're going to reinvest in you, that you're going to be that person to really help them learn to drive. Because they may not get to drive much at home. You may be that person to really encourage them, and also the parent. Hey, they're doing well. If the parent hears from you that they're doing well in the car, then maybe the parent will spend more time in the car with them.
So we all learn differently within this room. And if you think teens need lots of positive encouragement and praise, we do as adults. And then I will go back to your comment. I actually had the worst driver education teacher ever. Because it was my father who was a driver education teacher, and he had zero patience with me when we were out driving. All right, here's the last one. We have 5 minutes and then 5 minutes to close up. Implementing, what have you learned? What have you learned during the summit you feel would be beneficial to teaching driver education that you would want to implement in your courses? What have you guys learned since you've been here? I know some of us were only here today, but certainly yesterday with the cognitive skill development, other sessions that you have attended as well.
I'm not a driver's ed teacher or anything like that, but I've been teaching my kids, and out of this whole thing, what I have noticed is everybody talks about parent involvement.
Yep.
There is almost zero non-existent parent involvement. And like they said, like I have an autistic child, I had another one that's autistic with ADHD. They're both learning to drive, 15, 16. One's taking longer than the other.
Talk to this guy.
Yeah. I'm trying to involve myself more and being that parent and seeing how they each drive, taking them separately because they're both not learning the same thing. They're going to feed off of each other's nerves and anxieties.
Yep.
So that's what I've learned is we need to have more parent involvement.
I think it's one of our greatest,
And showcase that's what we need. We've let it all go.
I think it's one of our greatest opportunities nationally. But we have to figure that puzzle out because it's not an easy puzzle. It really isn't. Because we have parents that want to be engaged, and we have parents and guardians that do not want to be engaged in this process. All right, next. What are we going to take back? What are we going to implement? Just pick one thing to implement at a time. And after yesterday, I want to see more commentary teaching and student commentary. So practice it on your way home tonight. Absolutely. Get in the car, do it, practice it, practice it, practice it. Because it's not something that's natural.
Start them younger.
Start them younger.
My granddaughter is 12. She rides in the front seat before, and we talk all the time about what's going on.
Give them a steering wheel.
Not quite.
Just a paper plate. Not the. Yes.
So we have a free driver program in the middle schools.
Good.
Middle school health, they have a whole module on pre-driver in the middle schools at the junior highs here in Utah.
How many of you teach math? You have a great opportunity to bring, when train A leaves station at whatever, so we're relating to trains. Well, let's relate to cars, stopping distances, all kinds of things, perception, those types of distances. Go. We have just a couple more minutes.
I'm not a driver educator, I'm a driver rehab specialist here in Utah. And so I work with a lot of our kids who have learning differences, autism, ADHD, cerebral palsy, lots of different things going on. And I actually have a list that I've put together of pre-driving recommendations. So these are things that parents can start working on with their kids before they are able to get a permit, whether they're permit age or not. Maybe they're just delayed getting their permit for whatever reason. And I'd be happy to send that to Audra to send out also if that would be helpful.
I think that would be great. And for you guys, you need to have a relationship with your local driver rehabilitation specialist because we do get some students that get to a point where we're not specialized enough to work with them and a CDRS. How many CDRSs are in here?
We only have 2 in the whole state.
Oh, 2 in the whole state?
Robin is one of them. You're talking to one.
You're the only one in Iowa? Wow. Okay. That's an important relationship to have. Hey, have time for one more? Everybody's probably saying, that's about lunch time.
I'm not driver's education either. I actually work for a trucking company.
Okay.
And we do Truck Smart, and I think it's very important to have for these younger kids in driver's education to know how long it takes to stop an 80,000 pound vehicle.
Yep.
When you cut them off, where the blind spots are.
Just how big those blind spots are. How many have ever been involved in an activity like that? Where you can literally put 3 tractor trailers in a row. And from the front one, the rear ones disappear. And if you're behind a tractor trailer, you put a car immediately behind one tractor trailer, you can't see the other one in front of it. It is an eye-opening opportunity for any teen parent or guardian to actually go through. So, I think, are we at that juncture? You have that program? We have that program. There's an app for that. Any last minute questions before we wrap up? Observations? Do we know what we're going to work on when we go back? That's the benefit of these conferences. Pick up something new, take that back, and put it into practice. Questioning techniques, commentary. What can I do with my parents and guardians? How am I going to do assessment and evaluation differently? How can I expand that ongoing formative assessment and evaluation? And this thing's starting to drive me nuts. So with that, Thank you, everybody. Thank you for what you did. Enjoy the rest of your conference.
We've always had the honor, but they did the driving.